name is B, and welcome to my channel. I have some upsetting news. So, the the original audio at least, on my end, decided to die. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to basically re-record all of my bits and just hope for the best. So there's not going to be any funny jokes, there's not going to be any commentary, there's just going to be reading in this episode because I obviously can't remember all that I said, but I can read for the most part. So I'm just going to read the dialogue and cut out any of the more where I think jokes would be. I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened to my side of the audio. I really don't. But I hope that you guys can still enjoy this episode, and yeah.
Anyways, welcome back.
About 20 minutes had passed and she gave Alice the privilege of the first of the hot water. Alice tended to bathe quickly, finishing well under 10 minutes.
Oh, wish I could relate.
Her roommate was the type that could not understand the spirit of the bath, treating it as nothing more than a necessity for looking after one's body. For Alice, the concept of staying at a hot spring inn sounded more like a chore than anything, though in this regard Alco had to agree. I guess it's time for me to... Huh? Is that the drawing room light on? It was unusual for Alice to sit in the drawing room after her bath. On nights when she had nothing to discuss, it was her style to return directly to her bedroom. Alice, are you in here? Alice nodded. With no book in hand, it appeared that Alice had been waiting for Alco. So that's how it is. She really has no faith in me, does she? Alco scratched her head in aspiration. Was it that Alice was worried about her, or had no faith in her? Her expression was so calm Alco could hardly figure what she was thinking. I have a plan. Want to hear it? I can tell what it is by the look on your face. It's good that you're not... It's good that you're no longer wavering, but we must do something about that tail of yours, Alco. Alice let out a small sigh. It was unusual for Alice to make such a display of her own disappointment.
SMH, Alco.
I don't like sneaky attacks, so I'm going to do it fairly, and only after I've told him why straight to his face. That way, there'll be absolutely no trouble later. Any complaints? Why would I have any? This is really only a matter of personal preference after all. However, you're worried that I'll mess it up, right? My accuracy hasn't exactly been stellar lately, so I was thinking about how to cover my bases with the location. I can't throw up a field like you, so I was thinking of doing it somewhere where he physically can't escape. Any ideas? Alice nodded in thought. The finger that gently rested on her lips indicated that the question was to her liking. What about mirrors? You could easily seal him in the house of mirrors for all eternity. Seriously? That's your idea? She frowned at Alice's bad taste. It was the kind of idea her roommate found. To be inspired, but Alco knew was out of the question. Alco was looking for a natural bounded field that she could prepare, not a realm bordering on true magic that she couldn't create to begin with. Then you'll choose otherwise, I suppose. But please, whatever you do, do not bring him here.
Dang.
You don't need to tell me that. But actually, yeah. A house of mirrors might actually work. Alco smirked and shifted her balance away from the wall she was resting on. Thank you, Alice. I just figured out the whole plan.
Oh, so mirrors?
I guess it's always the best to talk to someone when you're in a bind. Now in a good mood, Alco retreated from the drawing room. Alice tried and failed to visualize what kind of blueprint Alco had drawn up in her mind, but whatever it was, it appeared to be the thorough kind Alco was good at. Alco headed to the bathroom, humming to herself as she went. A year and a half of sharing a living space had taught Alice something. When Alco Awasaki was in this good of a mood, only deep trouble could follow. You want to know if I'm okay with letting Alco handle this on her own? It was unclear how long the bird had been in the drawing room.
Burb.
Is it a burb?
Burb.
Burb.
Orb. He's so round.
Is it a little chunky baby?
Love him.
Chirping at Alice, the robin-like bird pranced across the furniture as if it were its property. Yes, I suppose. She said that she wanted to do it alone, and I do want her to know she has my every faith. Still. The girl in black raised her arm. The bird chirped once again, alighted on her outstretched affectionate finger. Suffice to say, trust and faith are two very different things. The bird puffed out its stout chest in agreement. And Alco was none the wiser to her roommate's rather unsettling comments.
That's not great.
No, it's not. No, it's not good. The following day was a typical overcast one. The day's classes ended as they had started, uneventful. Winter break was just around the corner, and with it, final exams. Although Misaki High prided itself on discipline, it was still a private school, and as such promoted a culture of independence among its students. Industrious students had a place to explore that sided themselves under the guardianship of the student council president. More easygoing students could spend their time after school as they wished, as long as they were mindful of personal responsibility. The fact that the poster boy of independence was the student council vice president indicated just how vast the spectrum was.
Yo, Aozaki.
It sounded like that door just broke.
Man, kick down this door.
Tobimaru to Tsukuji.
Hey, what's up, bitch? It's me. Guess who?
A nuisance to society?
Okay, fair enough.
Tobimaru Tsukuji threw open the door to the satellite student council room, the rumored location for their secret meetings. Despite all appearances, he was the student council vice president, who also happened to be the poor soul responsible for executing the student council's dirty work. One person was waiting for him in the cramped room. The student council president, Aoko Awasaki, sat imperiously in a folded chair, glaring at Tobimaru and his boisterous entrance.
Oof, this room is freezing as usual. We really need to buy a heater.
So, as not to succumb to Aoko's oppressive silence, Tobimaru opened with some casual small talk. Thank you for coming. Let's get down to business. Don't you know why I've asked you here?
I have an idea. What's up with the formality, Aozaki? Eesh, pretty harsh to talk shop right away all the time, you know?
Tobimaru closed the door and sat across from Aoko. He was holding a blue envelope. Yeah, and loose lips sink ships. Might remember that once you get out into the real world.
Alright, I'll remember. Oh, wait a sec. Nice try.
Tobimaru was halfway to agreeing with Aoko before he caught himself and began to shake his head. As much as Tobimaru enjoyed the lack of red tape in his new line of work, he was not ready to turn full spy on his first day on the job. So then, are you done with your investigation?
Yeah, I finished the last interview just now. The details are in the envelope along with the file you gave me.
He tossed the envelope onto the table. Good. Aoko picked it up and began to scan through the documents that were inside. She entered her own little world, not sparing the slightest bit of attention to Tobimaru. If ignoring other people were a skill, she would be a master of it.
I just wanted to ask one thing.
You skipped me.
Oh, I did not realize. I did not register. I did not register that it didn't say what.
Take two.
Yeah, sure. All right. Ahem.
What?
I just wanted to ask one thing.
Yeah, and? The room was filled with a chilling silence. Alko continued reading without an ounce of emotion upon her face. Though Tobimaru kept up an air of indifference, his stare remained fixated intensely on her.
Do you get a kick out of doing this kind of thing, Aozaki?
Of course not. What's so fun gathering intel I hardly even get to use?
Right. Just wanted to check.
Whether or not he was convinced, Tobimaru stood up from his chair with a disappointed expression.
You'll figure this out just by reading it all, but I wasn't able to dig up anything conclusive. By all indications, there wasn't any students in the area the day before yesterday. It's not like I can say that for sure, though.
No longer concerned over his task, Tobimaru headed towards the door. As if to say, it was out of his hands.
Oh, and one more thing. There was one student that wasn't included in your dragnet. You forgot to include any out-of-term transfers.
Alko raised her head ever so slightly. He was right. The recent transfer student was not included within the scope of her investigation.
So, I haven't looked at Sonoji. Though, considering it's him, it's safe to assume that he was working late. Or, wait. It would if he hadn't mentioned something about seeing a murder or whatever. I told him that it was probably just a bad dream. Damn, Tobimaru outed him.
He really needs to pick a goddamn lane.
God dang it, man.
This man, I swear, needs to pick a goddamn lane to be in. Tobimaru cheerfully left the student council room. What? Simultaneously, Alko felt her fingers go numb, and the documents she was holding spill all over the table. It can't be. That's not possible. She broke out into a cold sweat and tried to tell herself that this must be some kind of mistake. However, the uncomfortable feeling in her gut would simply not go away. Perhaps because her intuition was almost always right at times like these. You gotta be kidding me. And yet, she knew what she had to do. She would not have hesitated to kill Tobimaru if he had been the witness.
Wow, okay, yeesh. Jeez, alright. My bad, I guess.
But if it was him, just considering the possibility caused her blood to run cold. Alko put her forehead in her hands and began to brood. And then suddenly,
let us talk choice. You will always be faced with choices. A virtuous fool and a wicked sage. You cannot save both. You must pick one. That is the freedom granted to you. I'm guessing that's her grandfather, so.
yeah, that was my thought too.
Fair enough.
2 years earlier.
I certainly hope. If it isn't, frick.
2 years earlier. Alco muttered the words offered by her grandfather the day she replaced her eldest sister as his successor and let out a sigh of lament. So it was her grandfather. That's okay, that's fair. This has to be a joke. She laughed at her own intuition. But it was no joke. If only those words had never been said. Alco locked up the student council room and left for the day. Calmly, as though nothing untoward had happened, she greeted the students as they passed her in the halls. She was almost shocked by how natural she seemed. There were still plenty of students at the school. The grounds were noisy with the chattering of students who had finished the day but had yet to head home. Others still had club activities. The gray sky looked ready to pour, but nobody seemed to pay it any mind. Amidst the clamor, Alco had hasted to the school gate. She passed by some students in animated conversation. They seemed to be talking about their after-school plans. Apparently, they were adamant about maximizing their free time. She could not figure out how they could possibly be so irresponsibly focused on fun, but at the same time, she was in no mood to make fun or feel envious of them. 2 short years prior, she had been just like them.
My finger slipped, actually. Sorry about that.
It's fine. It's good. I could still read it, so that's all that matters.
Fair enough.
I wonder if I'm becoming desensitized to it all. She retied her scarf, this time more tightly, to give off an air of solitude, but she was fooling no one. After all, what person who feigned solitude was really masking? After all, what people who feign solitude are really masking is rejection. Solitude, rejection, they're two sides of the same coin. The area by the school gate was busier than usual. Bzz.
What?
Busier than usual.
Bzz.
Yes.
It was busier than usual.
It was busier. Yeah. A group of boys appeared to be huddled behind it. Their transparent attention to be discreet in terms of both location and loudness of voice did nothing to hide the fact that they were noisily arguing about a girl standing alone on the other side of the street.
Oh, great.
It's Alice! Yeah.
Oh, it's Alice.
Ooh, fancy music. The girl was cloaked in a black cape. At first glance, it could have been mistaken for normal attire, but those from Misaki could tell she wore the uniform of a prestigious girls' school. Said school had no connection to Misaki High in any way, shape, or form. The two schools were miles apart, both physically and spiritually. A member of the school's student body was a rare sighting, as the majority were forced to live in the school dorms. Rayan girls? Yeah. Rayan Girls Academy had a reputation as a girls' school for princesses, and it was rare indeed for one to be slumming up with the common folk. That alone would have been enough to cause the ruckus amongst the boys, but this girl looked the epitome of class. One could not help but describe this standing figure as charming. The way she silently, motionlessly waited was reminiscent of a meticulously composed portrait. Alco took one look at her before instantly recalling the one word, solitude. Okay, you lame brains. Don't you have anywhere better to be? Disgusted, Alco barged through the gate. At this point, she would normally head home, but today she crossed the street towards the waiting girl.
Crap! Is that the student council president? Damn it. She's trying to chase her away. Let the girl be. She has a right to stand there if she wants to. She's gonna go nuclear. The president versus the angel.
Behold the power of an angel!
Behold the power of an angel!
You insignificant fox! Ultra kill memes, that's what we're here for.
What gives, man? Who cares if she's from another school? She's not even on school property. Right? Right, guys? Don't mess with Madam Alco. You're just asking to get smacked.
The boys ran their mouths behind her back. Not in the mood to shut them up, Alco walked right up to the girl and offered an informal wave. Something the matter, Alice? I told you before there's nothing of interest for you here.
For real? I'm just imagining the freaking Ryuji from Persona 5.
Yeah.
For real?
Alco heard the boys by the gate lose their collective minds and did her best to ignore them. I wanted to be sure, but... Alco, those people are a nuisance. Dispose of them at once.
Damn, alright Alice, jeez.
You think I'll chase them off? In contrast to Alice's small voice, Alco spoke loud and clear. Naturally, this was on purpose, so as to deal with the riffraff by the gate all at once.
Crap! She's coming this way! Hey, stop pushing me! Move it! I'm out! But it doesn't look like they're tight. Maybe we could get the president to introduce us. Rookie mistake. You still haven't experienced the realities of the battlefield. On second thought, don't let dreams be dreams. Just do it! It's your funeral.
Perhaps because too many of them had gathered in one place, the mob entered a frenzied panic as they tried to escape. Alco addressed them all. Well, what do we have here? If it isn't the Go Home Early Club, would you mind telling me what you're all doing gathered in a place like this with no club activities to attend? The student council president stared daggers at the boys. In any case, exams are coming up.
It sure would be horrible if instead of going home to study, you were loitering around just to ogle another school's student. Now, wouldn't it? It's not like a single one of you had the guts to even go up to her and say something. Not one of them were brave enough to admit that this hit the nail on the head. If any of them had such courage, they would have already been chatting the young lady up.
I think I forgot something in the classroom. If I had known it was going to end like this, I would have at least gone down trying. Hey, what if we borrow binoculars from the astronomy club? I'm sure we could get a good view from the roof. Hey, the astronomy club doesn't have binoculars, dummy. If anyone does, it would be the Wild Bird Society. The press destroyed those last month. If you have enough time for bird watching, you have enough time to find a girlfriend, chicken. Find a girlfriend. Sorry, Zaki, I'm gonna cut through the back exit. I got a jet too. Later, Prez. See you tomorrow.
And with those oh so charming remarks, the boys scattered with their tails between their legs. Like the dogs they were. You seem to be enjoying yourself, Alco. How could you tell? Alco's response slipped out all too easily. In truth, there were not that many bad apples at Misaki High, and dealing with them wasn't really that bad. So, what brings you down here? Did you find something out? I identified traces of the witness from within the field. All we need to do now is put a name to them. I see. Alice, how long have you been waiting here? Since school was dismissed. So she had been there for roughly an hour. Standing in the same place for an hour would be taxing for someone as sensitive to the cold as Alice. I'm sorry, if you would have told me. Don't be. I'm just doing it because I wanted to. As she spoke, her black eyes were fixated upon the gate and the students passing through it. She had likely been observing the gate in this manner for the past hour. You were waiting for me, were you? Well, I'm here now, so we can go. Alice nodded in assent.
Assent. Sure.
If Alice was still here, it meant she had not found the witness yet. If she had found this student, Alice would have already gone home ahead of Alco and begun to research the student's background. Nothing came up on my end. She reported the results of Toby Marr's investigation. Alice remained silent. With that, the conversation ended, leaving the two to silently enjoy the freezing wind. The silent stakeout dragged on endlessly. Students continued to pass the gate, each shocked at the sight of the unusual combo, and head home. After 20 minutes, Alco had let a sigh escape her mouth, perhaps from boredom, perhaps from the cold, or perhaps from both. Hey,
On our way home, do you want to drop by Dawn? Alco quickly turned to Alice to catch her reaction. Dawn was the name of one of Alco's favorite coffee shops. Offering no clear indication as to whether she was critical of Alco's blasé attitude or agreed to her whims, Alice's gaze shifted ever so slightly. Alco followed her stare.
Guessing this is Sojiro, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ozaki. Are you meeting someone here too?
The sudden voice took her off guard. There was only one person who spoke with this gentle, good-natured tone.
Howdy, it's me.
It's Sojiro. Of course it'd be him.
I feel like I've stumbled upon a very, very tense time.
Turning her back to Alice, Alco moved her focus to the newly appeared student. Can I help you with something? All politeness flew out the window. Already in a bad mood, Alco's mood plummeted the longer she looked at Sojiro.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
The subtlety of her expression, however, was lost on him.
Ah, no thanks. I was just on my way to the station to meet the swimming club captain, and I wanted to say thanks.
Well, that was completely unexpected. Thanks, joining a club? Alco had a hunch that he was about to say something brainless. And by thanks, you mean payback, right?
Hey?
Fortunately, Sojiro was completely unaware of the more sinister implications of the word payback.
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but it's no big deal. It's just that the swimming club captain said that the club doesn't get that busy until summer.
Sojiro was just about to thank her for recommending a club that would not take up too much of his time, when Alco cut him off with the expression of disinterest. Well, of course. I couldn't very well introduce you to a club that I knew you would never turn up to. All I did was mention some that even someone as busy as you could join.
I see. Very efficient.
His open admiration for her sapped Alco's will to fight. Finding a suitable club and negotiating with its captain hadn't been an effective use of her time at all.
Anyway, you really helped me out. I just wanted to say thanks.
Sojiro gratefully dipped his head, but not before the flustered Alco stopped him. Give me a break. You're just gonna give me a headache if you do that. So, how's the swimming club? Does it seem like a good fit? An awkwardness infiltrated her previously sharp gaze. Sojiro was able to pick up on the odd change in her behavior, but could not divine its reason. So he simply started with what he knew so far and reported the most recent information he had.
Oh, I got kicked out of the club already.
What? Why? Alco instinctively shouted at the unexpected response.
I like Alice is literally just still standing there,
Oh yeah, no.
completely silent, watching.
She just vibing.
Absolutely not. There.
Stare. Like a human jack-in-the-box. The unexpected development threw her mind into a tizzy, and she momentarily forgot the complicated feelings she had been wrestling with. But you said you were on your way to meet the captain!
Yeah. The captain's taken me to a heated pool in Yashirobi.
Sotoro stated this very matter-of-factly to the still reeling Aoko. I'm not following. Things to be going fine. Why would they kick you out?
Oh, well, that's easy. 'Cause I can't swim.
Elko reached up with her fingers and pinched the bridge of her nose as she processed his answer. Suzuki, do you remember my question from yesterday? The one where I asked whether you preferred running or swimming? I'm confident that I remember your answer, but please repeat it to me. You said you preferred swimming, right?
Yeah. Since I was little, I've always wanted to learn, and I'm already good at running, so...
Her energy spent, Elko finally understood.
Apparently, they would have taken me in and trained me from square one if I were in my first year. Sadly, it sounds like they can't recruit a second year like me who sinks like a rock, especially with only 3 months left in the school year. But the captain was really nice about it and even offered to teach me how to swim.
Sojiro's words were spoken from a place of joy, a fact that failed to reach Aoko. In other words, I tried to palm off defective goods. I'll never be able to show my face to the swimming club captain again. Wait, but isn't the captain a... Suzuki, the swimming club captain is... She stopped herself short of a girl. She was afraid of how that might look, that she might not be able to rein herself in if she started. You know what? It doesn't matter. I understand now, so you can just go far, far from here. Okay? I just can't deal with you right now.
Tobamaru said the same thing, come to think of it. He said that you were unusually tired from yesterday and today. Did something happen?
Kind of. But it's fine. I seem to have resolved it. It seemed to have resolved itself. Anyway, how do I look to you, Suzuki? Do I really look that exhausted? Why had she asked him this? Blurting out things for no reason on impulse? That was not usual for Aoko. Perhaps it was because she realized that this would be their last chance to have a normal conversation. After a few moments of contemplation, Sojiro conjured up a grin that cut straight through the tension.
Well, I'd say you look more lively than you do tired. Like a wolf that's been forced to plow fields for a long time, but is excited to finally go on to hunt again.
That makes no sense. Genuinely. I don't think I've seen anything that makes less sense. He seemed so cheerful. Like he was so happy for her. Without thinking, Alco's hands went to her cheeks. If what he had said was true, then she was grinning from ear to ear. There was just no way she would have made such a mistake.
Anyway, thanks again. See you tomorrow.
Perhaps still not comfortable enough to wave to her, he said his goodbye with sincerity in his voice and smile, and took his leave. Wait, I have a question for you. Then you can go. Alco called after him. Her voice was cold as she had admonished herself from having been somewhat affable earlier.
Yeah?
This is just a hypothetical question. Let's say you're on the brink of starvation and right in front of you are two animals also starving. Someone gives you a gun and tells you to shoot one of them. The one on the right is a lion. The one on the left is a kitten. What do you do? It was a fable-like moral dilemma, especially in the way in which it was cruel and rather preachy. The kind that if you thought too much about it, you would never find an answer. Sojuro answered quickly and calmly.
I don't think I'd shoot at all. You asked me what I'd do, right? And, come on, all three of us are starving.
He was not in the least bit frazzled by the dilemma.
Bro said he'd stop the trolley.
I thought he was going to say that he was going to shoot himself.
Would shoot?
That's where my brain went. He gave the most innocent response. So innocent, in fact, that it would give anyone pause. You're going to live a long life, Suzuki.
That's a lie, apparently.
Right?
Whoa, you think so? I think that's the first time anyone has ever said that to me.
Adorning his face was a smile wholly out of sync with his comment. What the heck is that supposed to mean? She regretted stopping him.
Oh, God.
If only she had just watched him go, this conversation would have never happened. Sojiro Suzuki made his way down the sloped street. Today, just like every day, he probably had to work late again. Only Alco and Alice remained, with Alice doing what she could to simply blend in. That harmless egg really throws me for a loop. Alco clenched her right fist tightly as she cursed out loud. Anything to prevent herself from screaming at the top of her lungs. Whether that scream would be directed towards Sojiro or towards herself was another thing entirely. Alco. Alko heard Alice's soft voice behind her. Alko knew what she was going to say, as she had known for the entire time. Ever since, Alice, having shown no reaction to any of the other students, changed her expression upon seeing Sojiro. You don't have to say it. It's him, right? The witness. Her voice was ice cold. It was the voice of someone talking about a complete stranger. The lion and the kitten. There were pros and cons to choosing either of these animals, the point being that she had asked him to choose one of them. In terms of risk, the lion was the more dangerous choice. The instant the gun was pointed at it, there was a chance it would fight back. Those who chose the lion required more courage, but any sense of guilt that came with holding a gun would be forgotten. Lions are fierce creatures, poor excuse to shoot an animal, perhaps, but one that certainly helped alleviate the guilt. But what about the kitten, the weaker creature? It goes without saying that the kitten would be the easier target of the two, but choosing it would be a disquieting decision for anyone. Even if the kitten had no chance to survive, it was still too senseless to carry out. And to Alko, Sojiro was that choice. I knew it was him too. When she had felt that sinking feeling in the student council room, she ignored it. There was no getting around what must be done, she told herself. Until, that is, Sojiro went and said what he did, causing her resolve to waver. But the discomfort in her chest did not stir from any guilt she may have felt. She could care less for Sojiro. He was weak and would be incredibly easy to deal with. Yet for some reason she could not dispel her reservations. English. A transfer student who moved to the city from the middle of nowhere with no family to speak of. Few would notice if he were to suddenly disappear compared to a person of some renown. If she were to kill him, it would be as simple as wringing a cat's neck, and it all served to just piss her off. It was too lucky. Like something was neatly handed to her. She wanted to just drop kick it right into orbit. I can't believe it. I hate it. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Why am I like this? Standing behind her, Alice heard all of the muttering. Nevertheless, she seemed to ignore it and said, "He had something wrapped around his neck."
Oh god, finally somebody says it.
Finally, oh my god. Someone finally mentions it. A wholly unrelated topic. Alko returned to her senses. His neck? Yeah. I wonder if it has something to do with being rejected by the swimming club. Alice had put much thought into this, as if it had a deeper meaning to her somehow.
Bro.
Now that you mention it, I saw him wearing the same thing the first time we met. I must have missed it because he always has his collar done up. The conversation turned to idle nonsense. And though it solved none of her current problems, it did help calm Alko's frazzled nerves. Thanks, Alice. I'm good. I'm ready to go. Let's strike while the iron's hot, and end this before he spreads any rumors. Pumped once more, Alco turned her back to the school gate. For now, they would retire to the mansion and prepare for battle. Sure, but when and where do you plan to kill him? She said quietly, so as not to be overheard by anyone else. Normally, Alco had to rein in that side of Alice out in the open as they were, but this was far from a normal situation. Tonight, as for the place, we shall meet him in the land of dreams. She gave a fearless laugh. A strangely pleasant sound, like the kind one would make when meeting their lover. Oh, God.
Oof.
Night 5. Night of the Witches 1. Sojiro returned to his apartment on foot as per routine under a blanket of clouds in the night sky. The rusty stairs of his apartment building clanged with each step. Out of the corner of his eye he could see the bicycles parked by the apartment building's outer wall. He debated the pros and cons of a bicycle, how much easier life would be versus the expense, the convenience versus the necessity, but in the end, decided one was not right for him just now. Clutching the bag of apples under his arm, he took out the key to his residence.
A bag would sure be convenient, but... Oh, but it's not like...
He tilted his head in confusion. More and more he found himself preoccupied with such random thoughts, when the real issue at hand was deciding what to do with the apples he'd received. He placed the paper bag by the sink and switched on the lights. It was just after 10 in the evening. With the end of term exams just around the corner, he had come home an hour earlier than usual. As he made back for the kitchen to pick one of the apples to snack on, he found an envelope stuffed in his mail slot. The envelope had no name, return address, or stamp. Inside was a single piece of paper that had only the sender's name and a short message. It read, I'm guessing this is Alco.
Probably.
There's something we need to talk about tonight. It's important, so I'll be waiting. Needless to say, keep this a secret. A concise set of orders, neatly written. It was signed Alco Awazaki. She had been considerate enough to enclose a detailed map of the meeting place. Puzzled, he cocked his head to the side, then headed out the door.
Man, maybe I should get a bike.
Afterward, upon the room's sole tenant leaving the premises, the envelope burst into flames and evaporated without a trace, as though it had never existed in the first place. No evidence. By the late 80s, Japan's post-war economic boom had somewhat stabilized and the city experienced a period of steady growth. The city's modernization marched on, and Japan's railway's train station, a symbol of a new era, neared completion. In Misaki's neighboring town of Yashirogi, a new symbol of its own was about to be born. Yashirogi Bread and Kitsyland. It was Misaki's worst investment. Years later, it would be dubbed the fool's gold of the economic bubble, a relic of a bygone age.
The city lacks aspiration and sophistication. I was about to read it as sophistry or something.
10 years ago, Yashirogi's renowned Tokitsu Baking Company ran factories all across the nation. Its proprietor was a middle-aged gentleman, then age 56, by the name of Yorihiko Tokitsu, known affectionately by most as Topan. He took it upon himself to begin development on an estate of the outskirts of Yashirogi and broke ground on a recreational wonderland that he hoped to be the pride of Misaki City. Oh, that was a lot of words. The long-awaited opening came in 1981. After 3 years of investment, this local amusement park, full of all kinds of hopes and dreams, began its short-lived tenure. It covered more than 85 square acres. Its magnificent merry-go-round dazzled all who passed through the park's gates. Its roller coaster twisted and turned about the edges of the park like a whirling Japanese dragon. Its Ferris wheel, packed beyond necessity with gimmicks, was said to have tested the limits of modern engineering.
It's perfect, infused with everything an amusement park could ever need.
Old Yorihiko looked upon his creation and smiled. Only boosting his confidence was the fact that its grand opening was staged during a period of prosperity, the springtime of the world. But, in spite of this, once upon a time, there was a man who died.
Holy shit. God dang it. I was not ready for that. Pull the old Drosselmeyer on him.
Oh yes, of course. They splendidly miscalculated the balance between aspiration and sophistication. Its mascot, Kitsy, was poorly designed and appeared like a cheap knockoff. The park was stuffed to the brim with bread stands. Even its impossible-to-navigate mirror maze seemed out of date from the start. There are no dreams to be had at Kitsyland, only nightmarish satire. Numerous trade magazines
Lambasted.
lambasted Kitsyland's shortcomings, and customer attendance declined. There was even an incident where a 6-year-old strayed from his mother, had an accident, and nearly died.
Yikes.
1986, 5 years after the park opened. The situation had grown from bad to worse, and the park was hemorrhaging money. On top of everything, Yorihiko, who had bet everything on the success of mascot Kitsy, retired and Kitsyland's operation was officially in trouble. And thus, amidst the scorn of nearly all residents in the area, ended Misaki City's one and only amusement park. What's more, perhaps best described as a footnote to the debacle, the self-proclaimed Parisian artist who designed the mascot, Toki Julish, was said to have snapped his brush in mourning over the closure of the park. Returning to the present. It was midnight, and the Kitsyland of today was a shadow of its former glory. Like a doll abandoned in the corner of a toy box, the lonely park was illuminated only by the light of the town that continued to live around it.
So that's what happened.
Sojiro closed the Yashirogi guidebook that he had picked up on the way here.
Oh. This is real fascinating. I'm gonna go to the Wikipedia later.
I don't think Wikipedia existed back in '89.
The Wikipedia in 1989.
The story of its history was almost difficult to believe, but he supposed this was what people referred to as entropy. Entropy. Entropy? Entropy.
Entropy, yeah. Man, they made a whole theme park, and the theme was bread. I love bread.
Of course he does.
White bread, baguettes, croissants. Like, there's no way they went on a whole tangent about an amusement park just to like have this not referred to again, right?
There's just
Like, there's definitely gonna be like some sort of magic in this amusement park. All right, like I will call that. Anyways,
Did I read that? I did. Yeah, I did.
no, you did. Entropy.
Right. The park's front gate was unlocked. When he worked here the previous time, when he was here the previous time, the iron fence was locked shut with a rusty chain, but the chain was nowhere to be seen, and the gate left ajar.
You worked there?
Yeah, no, I don't get that either.
Huh. Interesting.
Following the map drawn to the letter, Sojiro quickly made his way inside.
It sounded urgent, but to meet this late at night, what in the world could she want?
Sojiro complained, quite out of character for him.
I mean, I'm not gonna judge her, but like, it's a little late, right? I want her to get in trouble.
It was probably because, in spite of his naivete, even he knew that something was amiss.
Yeah, something's a little sus around here.
Though the park was abandoned, this was still trespassing.
I don't really want to get arrested or anything.
Unlawful entry, larceny, burglary. All very illegal things. These were certainly not things, or perhaps crimes, that Sojiro was proud to do. But...
Sorry, I can't pay you any money. I'm really sorry for coming in for free.
Money, the real reason his conscience was gnawing at him. He clapped his hands in apology towards the statue of Kitsy, one on whose eyes the paint had begun to aptly dissolve.
Sorry about that.
Sojiro passed the mascot bleeding red paint from its eye sockets and began to walk the night park.
That's a horrifying mask. That's a horrifying image.
Yes, yes it is. That's... Kitsy's just gonna come alive, track us down, murder us.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The building colors had faded. The collection of machines was rusted. The man-made residence no longer felt the passage of time. Even the ghosts themselves could not endure the disparity between this forsaken place and its previous grand stature. It was like a fossilized dream. These were the ruins of a paradise both created and abandoned by man and reality. The economy had stabilized, and the standard of living was on the rise. Nobody was overly concerned with the future. These were the remains of a wild and exciting era. His breathing turned to white wisps before him. Sojiro continued through the abandoned amusement park. Though void of human presence, this was not nearly as frightening as the darkness deep in the mountains. City suburbs can take many different forms, but Kitsyland was unusual for an amusement park insomuch as it had been built adjacent to a residential district. The park was surrounded by a forest, but even that, ultimately, was man-made. It was no different from the curtains on a classroom window. If you were to scale the iron fence encircling Kitsyland and break through the 20 yards of forested trees, you could make it back to the familiar townscape. Though the amusement park tended to arouse dread in the city folk, to Sojiro, it was little different than the commotion and terror of downtown.
I guess that's it.
The central plaza was as silent as a grave. According to the map, the meeting spot was west of here. Waiting for Sojiro at his destination was a rugged, imposing, magnificent castle towering before the backdrop of the cloudy night sky. Even for an abandoned park, it was a remarkable structure. If the roller coasters and the Ferris wheels were loud, intense attractions, this was in comparison quiet and easygoing. It was one of Kitsyland's 3 iconic structures, and, in a way, the wicked fortress that guided this paradise down the path of closure. Generally speaking, amusement park mazes generally fell into one of 2 categories. A labyrinth, which disorients its visitors with its sheer size, and a house of mirrors, which disorients visitors with optical illusions. Many of the labyrinth's guests enjoyed the brief sense of adventure that it afforded. Over the years, however, it would be usurped by the ever-increasing thrills of new attractions, such as the way of trends, the curse of fads. The new must give way to the newer. On the other hand, the House of Mirrors was a time-honored, beloved staple. Even within the confines of a classroom's dimensions, well-placed mirrors and well-directed light could both perplex and delight its visitors. And figuring in the cost of maintenance, a well-designed House of Mirrors could far outlive its labyrinth brethren. Even if both types faded into obscurity, they would remain a staple of what constituted an amusement park. However, that didn't mean that combining them would produce double the fun. Together, they transformed the entertainment into an uncanny realm from which those who dared to step within could never leave. In a similar sense, Kitsy's Mystery Tour Castle was the park's very own other world. Indeed, 5% of visitors ended up requesting staff assistance to get out.
Yikes.
That's a low percentage. Damn. Modeled after European castles, it was greater than a football field in length, and the interior was further split into 3 floors.
Holy crap.
That's a lot of land.
I died. Jesus.
2 floors above ground and 1 below, lined with mirrors from top to bottom. Eagle Park's complex and vast. The maze demanded at least 30 minutes, even from veterans. One visit was all it took to be struck by claustrophobia, or catrophobia?
Catoptrophobia.
Catrophobia for hours. What is that?
The fear of mirrors.
Oh, that's fair. It was now this labyrinth that now stood in Sojiro's way.
Well, I'm gonna be here for a while.
Yes, you are.
It looks like it's not entirely pitch black. I guess somebody turned the lights on.
It seemed that Sojiro, unaware of what a house of mirror even was, concerned himself only with the lighting. He checked the letter from Alco once more. The letter read, "I'll be waiting in the first floor lobby of the House of Mirrors." That meeting place was definitely in here. There was something to see by at least. As he could just make out light faintly through the open doors. Sure. That's a sentence. Love that. Putting aside his suspicions, he headed towards the entrance. The sound of his steps against the brick-laid path echoed faintly. He was far from the hustle and bustle of the city.
Yeah.
The park's clocks no longer made tick nor tock, and the winter's bite no longer blew in the night. From within the silence, the stillness that would cause an onlooker to hold their breath.
Hello? Anyone home?
Sojiro stopped abruptly at the entrance of the House of Mirrors.
By the way, why are you over there? Why are you over there, Aozaki?
He called out, turning back toward the plaza.
Sorry.
A sound rang out as if someone had dove behind a garbage can and it fell to the ground in their haste. A short silence ensued.
It's a little windy right now, ain't it?
For a moment, the abandoned park returned to its previous hush. Resigned to her having been exposed, the girl appeared from her hiding place.
Oh.
His voice died in his throat as he took in the sight of the girl's familiar face in unfamiliar attire. This Alco, with her long hair flowing in the breeze, was different from the Alco that Sojiro knew. The resolute stance and posture she took exuded the strength of her will. She stared directly at him with a sharp-eyed, piercing gaze. Her eyes were glowing with a dim, phosphoric light, enough to give Sojiro pause that he might be hallucinating. An icy coldness and a girl's strength. Sojiro lacked a sense of danger, but the sense of imbalance caused even him to feel the malice in the air.
It's, a little cold, ain't it?
It was as though the Yuki Onna spirit of folklore had climbed out from the ghost story and appeared here in reality.
Aozaki?
Instinctively, Sojiro took a step back. Surprised, he was starting to feel concerned. An unpleasant premonition rose to the surface, bringing with it a sense of anxiety. In spite of this, he felt obliged to honor urban etiquette by seeing if she was all right.
Did something happen to you? From the look of it,
Without acknowledging him, Alko took a step forward. Her figure, this atmosphere, Sojiro found himself recalling a recent memory. His twisted and knotted apprehension melted away and was replaced with a growing realization. The girl before him was very similar to someone he had seen before, that night in the park, though he had only seen her from behind. With increasing certainty causing him to swallow nervously, he noted that they might as well have been identical. You asked me what I'm doing. You asked me what I was doing. Well, that's exactly what it looks like. I was waiting for my prey to pass by. Once you went inside, I was going to follow and cut off your only route of escape. Alko said, perturbed by the swift change in plans.
Phew. So I did come to the right place.
Sojiro was mightily relieved he had not gone to the wrong place. It was unclear whether he felt confidence about dealing with what was to come, or if he had simply failed to grasp the hopelessness of the situation. Alko ignored his obtuse response and continued. You know, Suzuki, just like anyone else, some people get on my nerves, and some people I just really hate. But the funny thing is, my enemies are never people on my shit list. Cold emotion burned in her eyes. Her feet had already moved one step closer to Sojiro. Sojiro sensed a sense of foreboding was growing stronger. Wondering if what he was sensing was bloodlust, he retreated another step. Continuing as always, they maintained a distance of 15 feet. As far as I can recall, I've never thought of someone I didn't like as an enemy. As it happens, I've even had enemies that I liked. And the reason is simple. She held her right arm out. The light about her was no illusion. Simple, really. Anyone who throws me out of whack is my enemy. Arm moved again. It was instantaneous. Something shot past Sojiro in the blink of an eye, missing him by just the foot to his left.
Hey.
Before his eyes, a blue light, something akin to a fireball, had ignited from nothing. He finally understood what was happening.
Wait a sec. I've seen one of those before.
She ignored his dim-witted reaction. Damn it, I missed. Echo muttered to herself. The fist-sized hole the blue light had made in the House of Mirrors cracked and smoldered. A shot like that could easily cave in a human skull in addition to burning it to a crisp. I have to kill myself if Alice saw me miss at this range. But you get it now, right? This is it for you. There won't be a second chance. Sojiro backed away swiftly. Things were beyond incomprehensible. He was close to losing the ability to think at all. All he could make out was the figure of the dependable student council president, or at least what he had thought was the president, and the memories of the park that night 2 days ago. He had never experienced anything like this, though most people living in civilized country would have never seen anything like it either. A lethal weapon that could kill with nothing more than the pull of a finger had a way of suspending the ability of its target to determine between not just good and evil, but dreams and reality, past and future. And the more peaceful someone's life had been, the stronger that suspension was likely to be. All that one could think about was the fact that they were alive at this very moment. It was as if he was It was as if he was an unwritten character on a blank piece of white paper. There was no before, there was no after, there was only what came next. This was a very common thought process for anyone staring down the barrel of a gun. Oh, don't bother begging. It's pointless. But feel free to air your grievances. It's a killer's duty to listen to her victim's last words. By saying it was pointless, she made it sound more like she would not listen to what he had to say. However, Sojiro was in such a state of shock that it did not even enter his mind to speak up. All he knew, from reasons unknown, was that the girl in front of him wanted him dead.
You could have told me, Tobimaru. You said that no such thing exists. Well, how about now, idiot? There's a monster right in front of me.
That's kind of rude. Sojiro felt that if he had said that aloud, the second blast would come even quicker than the last, so he kept it to himself. Expletives? His mental expletives stirred his mind from paralysis to mere panic. This response came not from confidence, however. Someday, out of the blue, someone is going to kill me. While it may have seemed like a baseless belief to hold.
Oh, but now that I think about it, murders happen all the time in cities. Should have remembered. You break the rules, you get killed. It's clear to me now.
To Sojiro, the situation seemed perfectly aligned with his inexperienced understanding that the city was a coldly pragmatic place. As far as he was concerned in this moment, being killed by a classmate was not something to be so surprised by. In a society where murder was possible, he was able to accept this sort of situation as natural, or virtually no concern was for the series of events that led—
Oh, watch. Oh.
Oh, okay, I can still finish it. So, of virtually no concern was the
Series of events.
series of events that led to Alco's aggression towards him. The only thing that truly confused him was Alco's blue fireball. Sojiro swallowed with an audible gulp. To anyone who may have been watching, it was the response of a victim paralyzed by fear. That's right. So you do finally get it. I'm all out of words, so I think it's time you die. I could go on about how magecraft has to stay hidden, but that doesn't really have anything to do with you. All you need to know is that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that it was me who killed you. Done talking, Alco once again lifted her right arm. There was a hum like a machine. Blue light began to revolve around her arm beneath her sleeve. This was taking longer than last time, leading Sojiro to believe that it was going to be much stronger than the attack that was still scorching the wall behind him. The realization caused his panic to heighten.
No, wait. It's not actually about me having to die, or the fact that the monster that night was actually Alzaki, or even whether she's part of a church. It's not about any of that.
He thought. His thoughts became jumbled. His heart pounded like a hammer. This was no time to be standing still. He was not sure if the girl in front of him was really human, and more importantly, even if he could accept the events unfolding before him when all was said and done.
Wait! It's wrong to kill people!
Even if it was a fact of life in the city, Sojiro was not about to lie down and die. Don't you think I know that?
Just... wait!
Sojiro's scream, still entirely oblivious, was just the thing to invoke Alco's full wrath. Alco fired a barrage of blue magical bullets. In an instant, Sojiro dashed into the shadows behind him, into the entrance to the House of Mirrors.
What the heck was that?
He darted feverishly down the hall. After a mere few feet, he was left completely out of breath. This was due to his shock at seeing yet another attack, fiercer than the first, that he'd never seen in his life, and because he could not shake the thought that if he had moved even a second later, he would be dead. He could not afford to stop. The sound of merciless footsteps closed in behind him.
I've bought myself some time. Maybe here I'll be able to figure out something.
He threw everything into his legs as he sprinted. A straight, narrow passage about 60 feet long connected the entrance to the main lobby. At this rate, if he could just make it to the lobby, he was sure he'd be able to find as many hiding spots as he needed.
Oh, thank God.
He arrived in a large open space. This was the first floor lobby. There were 3 passageways. One led to the basement floor, one connected to the first floor maze, and the other was a set of stairs leading to the second floor. Sojuro did not particularly care which one he chose, so trusting his intuition, he made a run for the first floor maze when...
Ouch.
He smacked his head into a transparent wall.
A mirror?
That's right. It's annoying, but I guess this makes things fair. The chaser and the chased are on equal ground. A somehow cheerful voice echoed in his direction. There was no need for Sojuro to even turn around. In the very same mirror he had chased into, he could see Aoko Aozaki's figure slowly approaching. You should know, I sealed off the first floor exits deeper inside. Physically, not with a bounded field. Is calling it a seal going too far? Maybe plugged or buried works. Either way, if you get too close, you'll be swallowed in by a cave-in. I recommend keeping your distance if you don't want to be buried alive. Panicked by the impending footsteps, Sojuro groped for the wall. He could see the stairs to the second floor. He did not understand what Aoko had meant earlier, but he at least knew that the first floor was not going to save him. It would save me a lot of trouble if you died that way, though. The cleanup is much easier for accidental deaths. Beneath him was a creature beyond words. Behind him, as she continued her idle taunting, she lifted her right arm, ostensibly, sure.
Yes.
Even from above her clothes, one could see some kind of strange, incongruous pattern upon her body. The veins beneath her skin. They made it seem as though something inhuman was circulating her body.
Wow.
Whether out of pity or repulsion. Sojuro stopped for just a moment. His pursuer evaded his gaze. You've noticed then. I normally hide it with ointment, but today is special. It's called a magical crest. It's proof that I'm a mage. You see this light revolving around me, right? It's the beginning of what formed that snap. Those bullets. I'm feeling pretty good today, and I've never felt more confident in how to use my magical energy efficiently. I think I'm good for another 30 bullets or so.
Oof.
That's a lot of bullets. Perhaps she was on an emotional high from her voice, for her voice had become frighteningly friendly. The substance of the conversation could not have been any more unsettling, however.
I don't understand a thing you're saying, Naozaki.
You don't? I'm telling you that I have 30 more shots in the tank. If you can escape before I use them up, it's your win. For today, that is.
For today? You mean I have to do this tomorrow too?
Sojuro knit his brows. Aoko's expression ceased into a scowl at his behavior. Although he was panicking, it seemed that deep down he still did not feel the full weight of the crisis. She knew he didn't get it. I said my piece. First time is over, or free time is over. I may still have some trash talk left in me, but, well, there's never enough time to get it all off my chest anyway. Just give up already. It appeared Alko had prepared this theatrical dialogue ahead of time. Not to allow her opponent time for futile pleading, but to give him the time to curse her, his killer. Such forthrightness was her modus operandi. With this victim, however, it was not going as she had hoped. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Shall we begin the hunt? Her voice was void of emotion, and her eyes ruthless as they bored into her prey. This time, Sojiro finally accepted that he was going to die. Silent as the dead, it stepped into the remnants of a dream that had long since seen no visitors. There was no wind this night, nor a soul to be seen. Still, it heard the echoes from within, clasped its hands together, and grinned. Its form, with hands clasped, resembled that of a budding tulip. The bearing of this artificial flower reflected in the cloudy mirror of the ticket attendant's office next to the gate. Next to it stood a display board, corroded by years upon years of rust. Number of visits today, 2. Number of today, bleh. The board had graffiti crudely scrawled atop of the words. It was replaced with deaths. The records board had long ago fallen to despair. After taking a full 10 seconds to digest what it was looking at, it made its own revision. Number of visitors today, 3. Number of deaths today, 1. After appending this number with an index finger, she smiled like a flower. Then she began to walk towards the source of the sound. It had been 10 minutes since the rhapsody had begun, to echo from the House of Mirrors. The amusement park's entrance returned to as if it was before, soulless. In the end, even if Sojiro had been the luckiest man alive, there was no way he should have been able to escape. The question, however, was how much of this was by design. And how much was sheer coincidence. Even Alko, who had all of the arrangements and had no answers. Indeed, there was only 3 things she could say. It was taking longer than expected. He was putting up more of a resistance than she had anticipated, and that choosing the House of Mirrors was a mistake. She'd really screwed the pooch on this one. The location itself was an excellent choice, as the House of Mirrors was perfect as a hunting ground, but seeing her own incompetence reflected in the mirrors was beginning to grate on her.
Ugh.
The moment Alko's right arm began to glow, Sojiro made a beeline for the staircase in front of him. A strobing series of blue flashes lit the room behind him. The hunter calmly followed her prey, and the prey desperately ran for his life up the stairs. Just what the doctor ordered. We can't very well let the best laid plans go to waste, can we? In stark contrast to Sojiro's frenzied escape, Alko walked briskly up the stairs. She elected not to run after her prey in order to maintain a set distance. As she lacked confidence in her accuracy, the hardest thing for her to deal with would be if he charged right at her and went down fighting. But at a distance of 30 or so feet, he posed no threat. By the time her prey drew near, she could fire 10 shots and hit at least 4 of them. Their positioning just a moment ago hadn't been ideal. At that distance, in a space that open, if he flanked and rushed her, there was a chance, however small, that it could turn into a fistfight. Currently, Alko's best weapon was the bullets from her right arm. If she was going to capitalize on the advantage, it was in her best interest to not close the gap between them. There was a good time to approach. It was only after her prey had become exhausted and had lost the will to continue. Would she pierce his leg? Shoot him in the back? Or perhaps would he just give up after losing himself in the labyrinth? The hunt would end when her target sustained some sort of injury and became unable to run. On Sojiro's end, he could barely bite back on screaming as he bolted through the maze. Even running in a straight line had become difficult, much less searching for an exit.
Ow, ow, ow!
The corridor stretched out far before him, or so the mirrors blocking the path had made it seem. Panicked, he made a turn to the right.
Ouch!
Clutching his head in his right arm, Sojiro led with his left, groping through the air to see whether a wall was there or not. He dove down the hall to the left, narrowly dodging the bullets targeting his life. Urged on by the sound of approaching footsteps, he ran without thinking. That last one was close. A hair closer would have meant his life. He caught the odor of burning hair from the back of his neck. He was very lucky. Or perhaps very unlucky. If he were actually lucky, he would not be in this situation in the first place. The second floor of the House of Mirrors was structured like a giant spiral. It wound left, starting from the outside wall. Eventually, it would lead to a dead end. The more he tried to escape, the more cornered he would become, and as though he was trapped in a twisted guillotine. His stifled screams threatened to leak out of its out his complaints. No matter what he did, he was going to be killed. All of his struggles merely served to prolong the inevitable. Yet he ran. No matter how many mirrored walls he rammed himself into, he ran. Even after crashing so hard that his forehead bled and he saw stars, he ran. Pain shot through him at every turn. The more frantically he ran, the more intensely he smashed into the invisible walls. His body began to understand the rule and begged him not to run anymore. His breath was already ragged after sprinting a couple hundred feet. No matter how he thought about it, it was not normal. This was too crazy. This was all just a bad joke. If he turned around now, she would apologize to him for taking it too far. His mind had gone blank. As his body continued to slam into the mirrors again and again, his feet slowed as they began to believe that perhaps it really was a joke. But then he felt a chill. A touch of death upon his neck. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Shojiro knew the kind of terrible chill far too well. Ever since he had arrived in the city, he had come face to face with more than one or two near-death experiences. For someone who did not understand city life, his present predicament was not unlike what he experienced: the traffic on the street or the commuter rush on the station platform. He was far from an innocent babe, unable to comprehend life or fear. Rather, everything he had ever known became irrelevant when he had flung into a completely different culture sphere. Even society's promises of safety, something urbanists took for granted, were threats unknown. So he was used to this already. Though if he were to be honest, he was dissatisfied with some things. Things superfluous to necessity. This world was overflowing with valueless things, and they were all dangerous in some way. Even the everyday necessities sold at the convenience store were, as far as he was concerned, amazing tools. Civilization had raised the standard of living so high that it had numbed humanity's sense of danger. The city's constant pursuit of wealth and convenience was a poison to a country boy like Sojiro. And he did not have the capacity to accept these conveniences. That it was possible for such conveniences to easily and suddenly be misused and cause unintended accidents, and also made him anxious. Why? He had to wonder why he was even here. How ironic. It took the real threat of death to finally make him realize. Like a divine revelation, what he failed to understand until now. He'd always had to expect the unexpected. Near-death experiences were more common than one might think. To begin with, safety was something that came at a price. Being alive meant that the opposite was also lurking around the corner. It was just like a streetlight at night. When the sun rose, its illumination would naturally disappear. Another barrage of strange projectiles whizzed mercilessly by him. He recalled in the back of his mind the charred remains of someone at the hands of the blue flames 2 nights prior. Somehow, this situation reminded him of a horse being led by a dangling carrot. For now, he lifted his head and continued to run through the labyrinth. But for what purpose? Though he knew the pain in his chest was very real, he felt disconnected from it. The night sky visible through the skylight was a muddy ultramarine, no longer resembling the one he knew. And managed to calm himself. Sojiro began to laugh in despair, as though something rather precious had been broken. Everything had become meaningless anyway. Even so, his legs somehow made their way forward at the sight of her reflection in the mirror. Like a game of cat and mouse, Sojiro fled through the labyrinth of mirrors. Then, after 4 minutes, that strangely unreal tension ended. The 9th shot of blue light hit inches away from him. It exploded the moment it made impact, launching Sojiro into the opposite wall. All of the fire he had taken thus far, the shot indisputably brought him the closest to death.
Ah!
Groaning, he collapsed onto the floor. His back was on fire with pain. He was not bleeding, and was lucky he could still even scream. Yet his body refused to move. Physically and mentally, he still had something to spare. The pain was not so bad that it was preventing him to stand up. It was just that there was a skylight above him, and he could glimpse the darkness of the night sky beyond. The feeling that overcame him was a raw, selfish bout of grief. It was just so cruel. To have to stare at that for the remainder of whatever short life he had left. Sojiro's ragged breathing slowed. For all intents and purposes, he had given up. He had given up running away from the sound of the pursuing footsteps and perhaps even the problem at the root of everything.
Well, at least it was Aozaki who got to kill me.
Sojiro Suzuki felt things that, in other circumstances, he would never feel. Incidentally, without exaggeration or embellishment, this was the only mistake he had ever made in his entire life. Staring vacantly into the night sky above, Sojiro listened as the footsteps drew nearer. You give up? It was the closest her voice had ever been to him. Perhaps feeling that he had really given up, she approached his collapsed form. In the dark, mirrored-lined corridor, he could not make out her expression. Without a word, Sojiro raised his eyes to meet his murderer. I suppose if you don't care, you don't have to ask. You really do throw me off. Most people would ask me why I'm going to kill them right about now. Alko spoke from within the shadows. His eyes widened in bewilderment. Now that she had mentioned it, he realized that that would be an obvious question to ask. He'd more or less picked up on the fact that he was being killed for learning some secret, but it was human nature to want to know more.
Yeah, that makes sense, now that you mention it.
A simple affirmation. His face was a mixture of resignation and forlorn longing. He thought for a moment before.
But you don't have to say anything. I don't want to hear it.
He responded in a mature, subdued voice. His response was clear, rather gallantly so. I see. I'm still going to kill you. Aren't you scared of dying?
Of course I'm scared. It'll probably hurt.
His face turned wry as he objected, to which Alko frowned. As nonchalant as he could be, he was honest about his feelings. Of course that would be scary. I'd be scared too, you know. Sorry though, you'll just need to deal with it. It's okay if you call me a monster. That's exactly what I am right now. I guess, in that way, I'm just like you. I don't have what you would call normal morals. Helps when I need to murder someone. Sojiro's fingers twitched in response to her indifferent tone. As if to say that, despite having given up on just about everything, his body could not let those words slide.
Murder is wrong, you know.
We went through this. I know that already. Alko raised her right hand. The light from the crest illuminated her face. It goes without saying that her expression was unchanged. She was not crying, nor was she smiling. She was a young woman who had
Excised
her feelings. Deal with it was another thing Sojiro could not let slide. Sojiro could read on Alko's face that she was not herself. She was in pain, and to a degree he had never seen her in.
Sorry, but I guess I do have something to say.
What is it? I don't think you can trick me into letting you go by making me feel bad. He unconsciously smiled at Alko's ruthless counter and breathed a sigh of relief. He had misread the pain he saw on her face. This was the same Alko. Sojiro laughed out loud in genuine joy, a laugh that most other people would have taken as an insult. I'm starting to regret letting you say your piece. Or should I take that attempt to make fun of me as just that?
Nah, I'm not laughing at you. I was just wondering if the person over there was a friend of yours, Azaki.
Out of nowhere, Sojiro pointed behind Alko. What?
it's usually at this point that the thing behind her would appear
Mm-hmm.
um in the game while the text was on screen,
Yeah.
and the fact that it is not there makes me even more. It makes me a little bit more frightened than I really should be.
Yeah, that's fair. Alco thought that it must have been that old, overused distraction technique. If this had been a Japanese comedy act, this would be the part where she gave him a whack with a paper fan. But after giving it a second thought, she realized Sojiro didn't have the capacity for understanding old and even new tricks. What are you?
Oh, same.
There it is. It's in the corner
What
there.
is that? It looks like another puppet.
I think it is a puppet, given the ball joints.
Hmm.
Perhaps his honest disposition had been to his benefit. Without thinking, Alco gave in to her curiosity and turned her gaze toward the direction in which his finger was pointed. And there, something that should not have been there in the maze, something with creaking wooden smile. It was the ominous, creepy, uncanny figure of a girl. A puppet? An unusual figure with 2 arms and 2 legs stood silently in the darkness. If only for a moment its beauty, which was even apparent from afar, dulled the insanity of the current situation.
Oh, okay.
I didn't like those eyes. Extend, extend, extend. The utterly unknown threat made Alco freeze on the spot. Avoiding it didn't even occur to her. Human process intelligence and knowledge, but when confronted with the unknown, they failed to process what to do, and...
Back in the box arm. Boing.
A shriek escaped Alco's mouth. The magical attack crossed the 30-foot gap in an instant. The arm of the girl who had appeared at the rear of the corridor was slender and quick. It extended to a near impossible length, striking Alco from behind. Alco crashed into the wall as she fought back an anguished whimper. The attacker retracted her arm.
Aozaki!
Sojiro sprang to his feet. He darted to her side and used all the strength he could muster to get her to her feet. He could not believe how light she was. In Sojiro's mind, Alco was an extraordinary individual. He expected that if he were to evade her touch, it would be apparent she was far stronger than he. But in reality, she felt about as heavy as you would expect a 100-pound girl to feel. Meanwhile, that thing continued to reel in its arm, as if it was some sort of mechanism. Having extended more than 30 feet from the elbow joint, it clacked as it returned to its previous shape and size.
Are you okay?
Are you for real? How could you even look at me and look at me like that right now? Alco tore her hand away from Sojiro's. Suddenly she felt her knees buckle from under her, but Sojiro caught her before she could hit the ground and helped her back to her feet.
Hey, don't push yourself too hard. So, do you know this thing?
He looked back at the eerie shadow 30 feet away as it finished retracting its arm. Yeah, I fought one of its friends a while back. Alko grabbed her lower back as she answered. A searing pain shot through her. It's just a bruise. How could it hurt this much? Could have killed me. Catching me off guard like that. Or maybe it can't kill from this distance? No, that can't be it. I must be missing something. Alko tried to steady her breathing as she assessed the damage done to her back. The pain was quick to fade and her breathing returned to normal. For the time being, her motor functions were no longer hindered. Which meant that the real damage was elsewhere.
Aozaki, you're...
I know, just shut up already. Blue light glowed across the room. The magical energy generated by her breathing was accumulating in her right arm. If magical energy was the fuel, the formula was the igniter. For Alko, this was little more than a reenactment of 2 evenings ago. Next time the puppet extended its arm, Alko would fire a magical bullet as fast as she could. A battle at approximately 30 feet. As long as Alko could secure a 2-second window, she could create a counterattack to end their duel. It made its move. With its head tilted down, there was no expression to be seen, and in the darkness, it appeared its apparent age was impossible to make out. To the 2 humans, the puppet was not To the humans, the puppet was not dissimilar to a faceless ghost. Its left arm slowly came up with a grinding sound. Its movements were dull, as if the joints were rusty. The right arm, which had been extended earlier, hung at its side. Though the puppet's mouth was hidden by its long locks, the sense was there that it was smiling. It's changing it up. It's attacking from the left. Move it, Suzuki! She threw herself into Sojiro and extended her hand. Its arm extended at that very moment. The timing was impeccable. In a single second, Alko's magic bullet scored a direct hit on the puppet's arm, reversing its trajectory and sending it crashing into the puppet's body with a violent explosion. Or, at least, that is what would have happened had the magic formula been invoked.
That's not great.
Huh? She barely avoided being struck once again. When her magecraft failed her, intuition took over and she just managed to get away. She got me. She knew what I was going to do. She clenched her teeth in frustration, her thoughts racing a mile a minute. Fight or flight? It only had one arm left, which would take time to which would take time to retract. This was the best shot Alco had at defeating it. If she could evade its right arm just a fraction, she could get close enough to... Oh.
Oh, okay.
Sure. In slumber I live, in dirt I rot alone. Today is the day I died and was born. I come to you. A crackle echoed through the corridor. The poetic murmurs contained enough magical energy for a mage to proceed. The verse itself was Latin, but it contained hints of the language of curses, Gander. Originally, they were words meant to curse a hated adversary. However, love it, more other language, more Latin. My life is immortal. Though my future was destroyed, I am a ghost. The definition of life is ethereal. I hate you. I love you. Let us meet in a dream. The puppet was directing the words at itself. Curses beget curses. The victim calls down a curse on the assailant, creating a vicious cycle of negativity. The incantation was meant to do just that. However, this was ultimately a one-puppet show. An unprecedented source of power akin to auto-intoxication. As unbelievable as it seemed, the cycle of curses had been turned into a perpetual motion device. You've gotta be kidding me! Isn't this overkill? Alco abandoned the idea of digging her heels in. It was time to flee with all due haste. What do you think you're doing? Come on! She grabbed Sojiro's hand and ran as fast as she could, deeper into the realms of mirrors. The crackling voice continued its murmuring behind them. My neighbors neglected me, not an innocent among us. We are all sinners. We are all sinners. Welcome to my house. May we die a muddy death, from dust to dust. Gouge out my heart. Death be upon you.
Oh, that's,
I don't like that. Those are some creepy fucking eyes. You took a screenshot of it?
yes.
Alco fought against the pain in her back as she ran through the mirrored corridor. She dragged Sojiro by the hand.
Hey, Aozaki. You okay?
My spine is numb. It could be worse. My internal organs seem fine, and I don't think I'm bleeding internally. She cursed inwardly at how much of a mess she felt, though. Unlike Sojiro, Alco did not run into any transparent walls. Thanks not to superior sight, but rather preparation. She'd hammered the layout of the buildings into her memory.
You're really okay? How can you tell?
Because it's my body. One of the first things because it's my body. One of the first things a mage learns is how to keep track of our body. Alco's matter-of-fact answer contrasted with Sojiro's nervous questioning. The corridor grew shorter with each and every left turn. At first, they were able to advance in a straight line for about 100 feet at a time. But by now, they were forced to turn a corridor every 50 feet or so.
Is that the one from the other night?
Probably the same pattern, at least. Whoever's behind it must be pretty wealthy to be throwing a valuable automata around like it's a toy. Sojiro furrowed his brows. He was grateful that she was answering his questions, but baffled by the strange words she was using.
Hold up, Aozaki. We've been running for a long time. We're a good corner ahead of it. We can afford to rest a moment.
His words suggested that he was still concerned about her injuries. Alko shook her head in irritation. Not enough against something with that kind of range. If we need to keep running until we're 2 or 3 turns clear at least. Sojiro nodded. With that matter settled, he asked.
Why didn't you leave me behind?
Why do you think? So you couldn't get away, idiot. Answering curtly, Alko glared at her naive prey. The two of them headed for the next corner. Their legs began to slow as they rounded one more. Alko rubbed her back as she tried to catch her breath. Though Alko had insisted that she was fine, it appeared to have been bravado. Even the usual clueless Sojiro felt the desperation they were in. He stood behind Alko with his arms folded. While they had a moment, he tried to make sense of everything. First, Alko had nearly killed him. Though he was saved at the last possible second, it was by the strange, stretchy woman Alko had burned to ashes 2 nights prior. He could barely make it out that night, but he considered it a her because it looked female. The woman's attack wounded Alko's back and forced her to flee. Alko had taken Sojiro with her, claiming that the reason she did was so to prevent her prey from escaping. In other words...
You haven't given up, have you, Aozaki?
Of course not! Even if I have to face 2 of those things, I still have plenty left to take care of the likes of you. Her tone was sharp, but even Sojiro could see that she was struggling to stay confident. The damage to her body was too much to afford her any optimism. Still, the fury in her eyes refused to accept her circumstances. My magic circuits are shorting out like crazy, which means that right arm of hers must be jamming my spells. Though her proper response would have been for her to tremble in fear, she did nothing but shake her fists in anger. The disruption of formula was supposed to work on absolute beginners. If it would have been her roommate, the arm would have been repelled the instant it hit her, and the attacker's circuits burned out rather than her own. Attempting to establish a link to the magic circuits of another mage was like presenting your heart on a silver platter. It would be of no use in a battle against a superior mage. And yet her adversary had been designed to do just that. coupled with the attacks on areas of Misaki under Aoko's jurisdiction these last few weeks, it was a clear statement from the enemy, who, as of 2 days ago, had revealed itself as a fellow mage. In other words, the puppet saw Aoko as no threat at all. Hang right into their hands, huh? While she was still angry, the whirlwind of emotions within her started to fade. Her face was that of a hunter far beyond her years.
You seem to be more concerned about this thing than you were about hunting me.
Well, naturally, I was only playing with you. Sojiro was not sure whether to be happy or sad at that.
This is all so confusing. I don't even know where to start. But can I ask just one question?
Ako didn't respond. Her eyes were focused on the darkness before them. The silence was heavy and the darkness was like a noose closing in on them. But Sojiro continued in spite of her indifference.
You're gonna kill her too, Aozaki?
A silence fell over them. It was as if the gloom was pulling them in. No response. Their breathing was the only sound echoing in the dim corridor. There stood Sojiro, forcing her to confront her sins, and the magician girl, who continued to ignore him. They spent a few seconds seemingly frozen in time. Yes. That's a sticking point for you, isn't it? Aoko whispered in a lifeless tone. Her sigh was tinged with both resignation and contempt.
Sticky... What?
Nothing, forget it. But just so you know, that thing that's following us isn't human. You might not believe this, but it's a puppet that can move on its own will, just like the one from the other night. Sojiro nodded as he processed the information. Not only did he not doubt her story, but he seemed to have accepted it at face value. You're awfully calm.
No way. I have no idea what's going on, so I'm just trying not to think too hard about it. The part about it being a puppet is too surprising to me, though.
What? Are you saying you've seen one before?
What do you mean? Ain't all puppets in the city like that?
She barely stopped herself from falling to her knees. Of course. How could she have forgotten? She was dealing with a bona fide, natural-born moron. As a student who transferred from the isolation of the mountains like an endangered species, his utter lack of common sense rendered anything miraculous as mundane. If automobiles were moving hunks of metal, then moving puppets were nothing to write home about. Wait, that meant... To him, the incident from the other night hadn't been extraordinary at all. He might have even assumed it was an everyday occurrence in the city. I give up. You know, I'd really like to get a look inside your head someday. I honestly have no idea how you've made it this far in life. No wonder you're such a weirdo. Normally, people wouldn't react the way you did when I attacked you. I could have been a monster or a ghost, but for you, you're just another new fact of life. I'm starting to feel like the real moron here. Her strained face returned to normal for a moment. It hit her. There had been another way to handle this without anyone getting hurt. But the damage had already been done. There was no do-overs in life, nor should there be. Her own mistaken assumptions had sent the situation spiraling out of control. But now that Sojiro was involved, she had to make sure that her secret was safe with him. Even if there had been another, better option, the ship had sailed. Human relationships were ultimately driven by mutual misunderstandings. Like trapezes, woven from mismatched intentions. And I think that's where we should stop for today.
Yeah, entirely fair.
The end. Well, for today.
Later, gamers.
See you guys next time.
We're gonna go buzz off now. Bye.